On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, the Thunder pulled off another successful week. What will it take to make this one successful as well? Plus, the NBA tier list. Who is true contenders? Who are pretenders? And who's focused on Cooper Flag?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first order. We're joined by Michael Martin at Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube, at Michael on Sports on Twitter, to discuss the Thunder's week ahead, the Thunder's week behind in our NBA tier list. But Michael, how you feeling after another week of NBA basketball?
Feeling good. We got some really high-level basketball, and I'm ready for the team to come home for a little bit. I mean, they've got one more road game, I think, but excited to see them in person once again.
Yeah, it's a kind of a weird stretch because you do have the Philadelphia game on Tuesday to end the East Coast trip, but then you're back home for Cleveland Thursday, dip down to Dallas, which is kind of, a home game in the sense of like travel. It's not that laboring of a travel. And then you get back home for Brooklyn, and you get back home for Utah and Dallas. So the only thing stopping you from another elongated homestand is that Dallas road game on Friday. So other than that, the Thunder are going to be looking forward to being at home for a bit before going back to the West Coast for 2 games. But this week, the Thunder had their winning streak snapped. They lost to, Cleveland. What did you make of that game? I mean, this is a game that the NBA hyped up to the max. That they were promoting it. There was a rare game that they promoted in the regular season, especially for 2 small market teams. And then the game itself, independent of who won, independent of Locked On Thunder, Locked On Cavs, it was a really good basketball game. The Cavs ended up winning it. Just what did you make watching it unfold?
Well, the marketing was there. Bullying works. We bullied the NBA into marketing that game, so good job, everyone around here. Round of applause. But the actual game was really, really good. Some high-level basketball from both sides. It was really fun to watch those teams match up. And I'm really glad that we kind of get to see them come right back at each other again, where the wounds are still sort of fresh and the player personnel is sort of similar. Knock on wood, there's no injuries the next couple days. But Shea going out there and matching those guys was really, really interesting. The way the Thunder handled Donovan Mitchell was really, really nice. But yeah, the bigs, this was one of those games where you and I mentioned it when we were talking about a couple weeks ago with the Celtics game and the first Knicks game, which the Thunder didn't get caught. But at one of these big games was going to catch up to them, the fact that they need Chet to get over the top. And this is one of the prime examples of that, where you have the size of Mobley and Allen, where Chet's not some dominant player down on the boards who's just going to move people out of the way, but just having an extra big body and rim protector, I think, is a really big deal.
Yeah, they for sure were missing Chet in this game. They competed to the very end, though, so I think that it was just a look at how talented the Thunder team currently is and how much you imagine they're going to get better. And I also thought that it was a clear separation, too, for Cleveland of just there's always been people who have looked at this fast start, looked at the successful regular season, and doubted kind of what it could be, what it will be in the future. But, man, watching the way that they are able to whiz the basketball around and bend the defense, watching how good the big-to-big stuff is, watching how they compete defensively, and that's kind of my biggest thing, of my biggest 180 on Cleveland. At the start of the year, I kind of just had that basic mindset of, well, they got 2 small guards, and in the half court, in the playoffs, 2 small guards are going to be really, really, really tough to overcome. But it's not as though those 2 small guards just play 0 defense and 0 effort level. They give you effort to compete, and if they can just simply hold you up and present even a roadblock in a mall parking lot level of defense to you, then you get by them and you go get rewarded with Mobley and Allen, and your life is still really tough on that end. So I do buy in to the Cavs more after this game. It was a legitimate game, a legitimate win for them, and we'll have our NBA tier rankings coming up But we'll talk more about that game too, because we need to talk about adjustments to that game at the end of the show. Now, they did bounce back with a win over New York, which was a blowout win over New York, 126-101, where Isaiah Joe went for 31 points. SGA had 39 points in 3 quarters. Whenever you saw the kind of schedule, and you did predict 2-1, so you were correct. But when you saw how the Cavs game ended and then went into that New York game, did you think there was going to be a blowout?
No, it's hard to expect a blow. I mean, the Wizards game, I expected a blowout, but against a good team like the Knicks, not really. I knew the Thunder were going to come in focused and probably a little bit pissed off just because of losing to the Cavs, and we knew that would sort of relock them in, and I was excited to see them coming off a loss and just seeing how they would respond. But yeah, for it to be a blowout, I don't think anyone could have seen that, especially just after how close the last game was between these two teams, where it took sort of a Wiggins miracle to pull that one out. For it to be a blowout like that is just ridiculous, especially with how the game started out, where both teams just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn shooting. And then Shea just kind of unlocked everything, and then Isaiah Joe, whatever happens. The Thunder go on to get this big lead at halftime, where the Knicks as a team score 42 points, and I think Isaiah Joe and Shea scored 41 just together. So those things can get out of control in a hurry, especially when you're the Thunder, and you can really just kind of constrict teams like that and get a bunch of stops. So when they're hitting offensively, they're nearly unbeatable.
For sure, and I think that game was a separating factor. I mean, you sweep the season series against New York, and you do it almost the same way, kind of, like in back-to-back games, where it is the fact that the Thunder have depth. And you mentioned how they looked awful, like both teams looked awful offensively to start that game this Friday. I think that some of that was like they were hurrying up their own pace because of the respect that they had for the other defense. Even if the defense was not playing to that level at the time, they were just hurrying themselves up into mistakes. But the Thunder had somebody to go to like get them out of it and get like, okay, if all of you guys are having an off night, let's get us out of this rut with somebody. Let's keep trying to find the answer. The Knicks just had to suffer with who they got and what they were getting. Like they didn't get a good Bridges game. They didn't get a good OG Anunoby game. They didn't get a good really almost anyone game, but they just had nowhere else to turn. And the Thunder did. The Thunder had an ability to play the Isaiah Joe card, and it ended up working out for them. And once he kind of steadied things and started making shots, then you saw, of course, Shea was hot the entire game, and then you were able to get some J-Dub buckets in there. You were able to kind of work around that. And then against Washington, I mean, this wasn't even a basketball game, really. I mean, the Thunder it was a rare game where they dominate, but, like, you look at the box score, and there's nothing really, like, exciting even. Like, Shea got to 10,000 points, but he did it on 27 points and 29% shooting. Like, okay, it is what it is. Did you have any thoughts on the Wizards?
Good job taking care of business and just beating a bad team. I mean, we saw this Wizards team come in here at Oklahoma City where the Thunder still did win by double digits, but it seemed like they were messing around and playing with their food a little bit. I think that was the one in post-game where Dub was talking about just them not coming locked in defensively and sort of being just a little bit messy and sloppy in that way, and it was nice to see them respond, but this is what good teams do. You blow up bad teams like this, and to your point, nothing popped out on the box scores like, oh, this guy just went off. It was just better team beats bad team, and it's pretty simple to say that, but I think that's just the right way to sum it up, as simply as it is, really.
Yeah, I mean, these same Wizards took New York to overtime, and you just don't want to be in that situation where you get caught lacking against a team like this. And so, credit to the Thunder for taking care of business. But coming up, we're going to have our NBA tier list. Who are contenders, pretenders, and Cooper Flag teams coming up. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at Wayfair. Go check them out today, because after the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that beautiful, refreshing decluttering of my space helps me get back into a routine. So whether you're just tidying up, cleaning out, or just wants to give your space a new look, try this year with Wayfair. It has everything that you need all within your budget. So I'm currently looking for a bookcase, and Wayfair has really good deals on bookcases with a huge selection to give me everything I need that fits my style and budget. My favorite part is the free and hassle-free delivery, even for larger items. Wayfair site is so easy to navigate, and I found everything I need in no time. So go check them out today and give your home the refreshing look it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Joined by Michael Martin at Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube, at Michael on Sports on Twitter. I'm Rylan Stiles at Rylan Stiles at Rylan_Stiles on Twitter. Let's do some NBA tier lists. So here are our tiers. And Michael, you are a big tier guy, so I thought that this was going to be fun to do with you here. My tiers are: tier 5 is tankers. Tier 4 is like no true chance to even win a game. Like you would think that this team's either going to lose in the play-in or get swept. Like you don't even think that they can do anything. And then tier 3 is they can take some games. Like maybe they can get a 6-gamer out of you. Maybe even scrap their way to a series. But yeah, nothing past that. Tier 2 is that you can make a run. Like if everything broke right for you, you can win a championship. You can get to the NBA Finals at least. You can even get to the conference finals. Like if everything broke right for you, you could see yourself having a run. And then tier 1 is you can win a championship without luck, without flukiness. Like it's just legitimately like you can win a championship. Let's start with the tankers and knock those out. For me, it's Brooklyn, Toronto, Washington, Portland, Utah, Charlotte, and New Orleans, because I just think that New Orleans, like they're more talented than a tanker, but you saw how they lost against Boston yesterday. Like they're just going to lose this year. That's what it is.
Yeah, I added one tier above that, or like between the no chance sweep play-in, and that's the they don't know they're bad yet tier, and that's where I put the Pelicans as well as the Hornets, of just teams that have been pseudo competitive, and it's more just the fact that the Pelicans haven't been competitive, but it's more so just their organization would like them to win a little bit more, and I think that they're just holding on to whatever hope they can, just grasping for whatever they can, and I think that those are going to be the teams that end up selling at the deadline, but they just don't know yet. But I completely agree with you with the capture the flag tier of the Wizards, the Blazers, the Jazz, the Raptors, the Nets, all just sort of teams that we could probably just see before the season even started coming in that way. But I'd say those are the bottom of the barrel.
And then we get the no true chance. And so this is going to be an interesting tier to see how extreme we both were and how kind of liberal we were with some other teams. But the no true chance, again, is just teams that will make the play-in or even make the playoffs, but we have no faith that they're going to win a game or even get a gentleman's sweep, much less go make a run. So I'm going to start it off with Detroit. I love what they've done this season. I think that their veterans have really tied this roster together, and of course, Cade Cunningham is playing at an All-NBA level. But much like that Thunder team that made the play-in tournament, they might win a play-in game. I don't know if they're going to survive the tournament. I don't know that they're going to make the playoffs, and if they do, it's going to be a short run anyway. So I have Detroit in this no true chance.
Yeah, I'd put them in the same way. I mean, you have Shea and Cade, the similarities between that play-in year and now of just one guy doing a majority of the heavy lifting, and they just don't have enough depth right now. I mean, the Thunder had some more young, exciting players coming in. Like, you had Chet's injury, J-Dub was exciting, and I like some of the guys the Pistons have, but no true chance for them really at all. I mean, Cade can win you one play-in game, but I think the higher up you get in a one-game environment against these teams that can really prepare for you, I don't think there's a chance.
I'm going to go Chicago Bulls have no true chance. And I wrote this on Thunder and SI. The Bulls are the most uninspiring team in the NBA. They have no chance to even win anything. Not even a play-in tournament. I think that I'd pick them to lose the play-in tournament probably right now. I just don't like them.
That's why I put them in the they don't know they're bad yet tier.
Yeah, that's true. I'm going to go LA Clippers. It's a fun regular season story. I really think that staying this much afloat without Kawhi has been truly impressive. But the West is so tough. Now, I think the Clippers can survive the play-in tournament. I don't think that they can take more than a game over somebody.
Yeah, well, my face cam is frozen, but I'll try to unearth it here with some hotter takes. I have them in a win a game or two. I have them a little bit higher just because I trust James Harden to get you a game or two in the playoffs. He's not going to win you a series with just some of the weird stuff that's happened. And then Kawhi, there's always a weird chance that he just unearths and looks really, really good. But I trust Ty Lue to a degree. So I can see them in that same category that you have, but I have them one above.
Okay, so we have one difference to track this season so far. I'm going to go Sacramento Kings in the no chance category. The coaching change is paying off so far. I mean, they're on that winning streak. Fox and Sabonis playing really good, but even at this group's like very best, they couldn't win a series, and they played a really hard fought one. But this team is far from that team that played competitive playoffs. I don't think that they're going to be competitive this year. I think that this kind of new coach syndrome will wear off a little bit, and they'll come back down to reality and just have no chance.
Come to Jesus here for the Kings in terms of like they've got a nice little win streak going. They won a few games and sort of the coaching change, which you'll see that from like a burst of these sort of bad teams, but it's still going to catch up to them that they don't really have enough perimeter defense. I mean, Keon Ellis is playing decently, but I just don't trust a Sabonis front court to really defend the rim, and a lot of those guys like DeMar DeRozan, so I have them in come to Jesus sort of they don't know they're bad yet.
And then you have the Phoenix Suns, which might be like, too early to judge because they might get Jimmy Butler, but I don't know. I don't even think that with Jimmy Butler, it makes them contenders or even like a team that like could make a true run if you squint your eyes. I was all in on the Suns in the preseason. I've, of course, lost that love. I've lost my joy for the Phoenix Suns.
I'm losing joy for my face cam right now, but I'd say, yeah, the Suns, I feel like in a similar boat of just the depth is going to be weird. I don't think even if they get Jimmy Butler, you're just adding another guy who also has a lot of health risks, just like Booker and Durant, and I still think defensively they're just not going to be able to hold up in the same way. Beal is not a better player than Butler. Butler would be an upgrade, but I still think that they would still have some issues.
And then the Heat, the Heat culture is in a mess right now. Bam has regressed. Tyler Hero's playing really good basketball, but I just don't see that they have anything close to enough to go on a run. Perhaps they could win some fluky magical series, which should put them in a better tier. But as of right now, without knowing the Jimmy Butler package or anything like that, I just don't see how they can do it. I don't see how they can pull it off.
That I would put the Heat, in that same one of just like Heat culture, Heat magic, Heat devil magic. If they can win a game or something like that, they can get into the play-in. But beyond that, their roster is just not talented enough.
And then we have the San Antonio Spurs, who I think have a good chance to make the 8th seed through the play-in tournament and play the Thunder, which would be the just delight of the NBA. They would love to market Wemby, Chet. They would love to market this rivalry if they start the push. But ultimately, again, that's the pathway for a team like San Antonio, who we like to watch, but their pathway is playing the Thunder or Memphis or whoever gets that 2 seed, and it's just too difficult of a road.
Yeah, they're in another similar boat to like the Pistons that we talked about, the Thunder and their play-in year of just like they're a year away from like actually making some noise and maybe potentially doing something where they need to get another lottery pick. But Wemby's special, so there's no doubt in my mind, like you mentioned, they could win a play-in game or two and get to that first round, but they don't have enough talent to really win a series.
So we have 2 more teams that I think that we could join the Clippers in disagreement on. I'm going to go LA Lakers. That have no chance. Like, they're the best player like to ever lace them up ever, but a very poor supporting cast, inexperienced head coach. It's a tough sell for me. So I'm going to go Lakers, have no chance.
I have them a tier above just because I'll ride or die and just wait. I'll be the last on the boat, but just facing the Lakers in a 7-game series when you have AD and LeBron who have that much experience, who can really slow down the pace and just sort of grind you out. And, the Lakers, like, we're never going to say the league is rigged, but like the Lakers do get a lot of calls, and that can really put you down behind the 8 ball if you're one of these smaller market teams. So I think that they are a team that's not going to win a series, but they could definitely take a game or 2 off you.
And then we're going to have the Indiana Pacers, and I'm probably too low on the Pacers. They're playing good. They won against Cleveland last night, that they're playing a lot better, but I just struggle to see how they can repeat their fluke run of a year ago. But, man, I can see why people would have them above here.
I have them above. I think that they're a second round and out team at best, but they can get hot from 3 like we saw them the other night, just beat the Cavs. So they are a high variance team. I mean, that's how they've sort of made their run to the conference finals, and they did it without Halliburton in part. So I think that they're slightly better than last year, but the East has gotten so much better that I think it puts a hard ceiling on them.
And then my teams that can win some games and maybe take a single series, I have Golden State. Maybe I'm buying too much into the Steph Curry thing, but similar to what you were talking about with LeBron and AD, I believe in Steph Curry. I believe in Steve Kerr in a playoff setting, and then I think that they can get enough from other guys to play spoiler, but not make some deep run. But I have the Warriors here.
I have them a tier below, and the thing is, it's just Steph would be my argument. I think that the Warriors, to your point, could grind it out. I mean, they have all the experience. They have guys like Draymond, where if they get into sort of a bar fight where it is sort of messy and they play like a team like the Rockets, who don't have a lot of playoff experience, I think that they could outsmart them and outwit them. But to your point earlier, that I just don't believe in their depth. They don't have enough ball handling, enough shooting outside of Steph. I mean, Schroeder's a good player. We saw him here in Oklahoma City, but I think teams would be very, very fine and very, very happy to sell out to stop Steph and just go, the rest of you four guys, just knock yourself out.
Yeah, I mean that's for sure the downside to them. Another team in this group for me is the Atlanta Hawks. I think that we've seen Trae Young do it. We've seen Trae Young pull off these miracle runs before if everything breaks their way where they go on a deep playoff run. And now in this tier, all I'm asking for him is to be a guy that can win a couple games and win a series per chance. So him and Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels, like I think that they could stun a team or at least make a team sweat in the East playoffs.
Yeah, I have them in the same tier of just being a team that I've never been the biggest Trae proponent, but like I think that he's giving up some of that rope that we've needed him to do and wanted him to see him do, just in terms of like letting other guys have a little bit more of an investment on the offense, and I think Jalen Johnson's been sort of the biggest beneficiary of that. I think that could help them in the playoffs, and you have a guy like Dyson Daniels who's just been sensational defensively. Like, wouldn't surprise me at all, just given the history, and then also Dyson Daniels guarding Jalen Brunson if they really, really push the Knicks to like 6 or 7 games.
I have two more in this tier. One of them is extremely hot. I'll save that for the last. Houston Rockets. This is a massive jump from Houston. Love what they've improved upon, but this is just a regular season success story that when push comes to shove, they don't have the most important piece in the playoffs, which is a go-to scorer. And that means that like their defense, which is good, and their kind of moving parts of like their depth and and all their young players, they might steal a game or two off of you, but that's about it.
Yeah, I know I compared them to the Kings from a few years ago as the defensive version of that, but honestly, they all just coming to my mind right now, they remind me of that Clippers team with Shea's rookie year, where they were just by committee, but it was led by like Lou Williams and Gallinari and guys like that, where it was a solid team, but like there was no true superstar or even all-star on that team to really do a lot of the heavy lifting. So I say the Rockets are in the same boat of like they could talent their way in and sort of just depth to a couple wins, but beyond that, they're not going anywhere.
My hot take. The Philadelphia 76ers can still win you a couple playoff games, baby. I'm all in on the Sixers. I have been for the last like half decade. But I mean, I think that you get across the play-in tournament aisle, and all of a sudden, it's not exactly the Jameer Nelson Magic squad at the bottom of the East. Like this Knicks team will, of course, this Sixers team will, of course, have their work cut out for them, but they can steal you a couple games. Playing a team that they're, what are we underseeded, overseeded for, whatever it's called, where you're kind of catching a team where you shouldn't be.
I'm going to push back on that. I have no belief in the Sixers. I have them as the no chance sweet potential play-in loser team, and just in terms of like the vibes are so bad with that team, like the Paul George quote where he's tired of chasing around. He doesn't want to play against bigs anymore. He wants to go chase around guards and stuff like that. Embiid's just so hit or miss in games he's going to play or not. I don't trust Embiid in a situation where you're going to have to really, really ramp him up and play him a bunch of minutes. So could they potentially win the play-in and then get swept by a really good Celtics team or a Cavs team? Yes, but beyond that, I have no faith in them, and I'll be wrong if it happens. I'll raise my hand and say I was wrong, but I just don't have a lot of faith in the 76ers team right now.
Yeah, I think that I'll be the one raising the hand saying I was wrong, but I can't ditch the Sixers. I've clung on to them again for a half decade now of like really being a believer in what they're doing. And when I look at this team on paper and not in actuality, I see a hell of a coach in Nick Nurse. I see Joel Embiid, who, if he can get on the floor, is really good. Tyrese Maxey, I think, is legitimately one of the best young players in this league. And then, yeah, Paul George. That's not going to help my case in the playoffs. Let's be honest. Playoff P is not a real thing. And if it is, it's a bad thing. So, I'll probably be wrong. But if we're just talking about stealing a couple games here, and we're talking about having a competitive series, a series where you look back on it after the series is over and say that was one of the best first-round series, I'll still roll with it a little bit. Now comes the fun part. Let's do who can make a legitimate run where things have to break right for them, but you wouldn't be just floored if everything broke right for them in order to go to the conference finals or deeper. Number one with a bullet for me, Dallas Mavericks. I mean, obviously we saw it last year. It's kind of the same story playing out. They're going to be a lower seed than they should be because of Luka and Kyrie missing time. But when they get healthy, they're capable of beating anybody. They're capable of going far in the playoffs. They have a coach who's taken them already on 2 deep playoff runs. They have 2 of the best top talents in the league, including Luka, who is similar to your James Harden belief. Like Luka, in a series where you got to win 4, Luka's going to win you 2. And so how can you get those other 2 if you're Dallas? They just can go on a run for sure.
Yeah, and the bracket's just really shaping up for them nicely, where if they go play a Houston team as the 2 seed, like, that would be unbelievable for them, which is sort of the disaster health season the Mavericks have had. And I'm right there with you, where, like, their record says one thing, but my eyes and my experience and PTSD of last year tell me another thing. And, yeah, Luka, I said something about James Harden winning a couple of games. Luka's been one of the best playoff performers in NBA history, just starting out in his few years in his career so far. So he's a guy I have insane trust in. Like, we even saw him play injured last year in the conference finals and finals. So I'm right there with you of they can definitely make a run.
I'm going to go Denver Nuggets. This might be a bit too high for them, but, I mean, they have the best player in the world. They are figuring things out in this recent stretch. I think they have the best player in the world. They have a really good coach. And then they have some guys who've been there before, who, of course, won a championship, who can deliver big outlier games. So I'll go Denver, can make a run if things go right.
I have Denver in the same tier. It's mainly the same argument as you, where just like Jokic is the best player in the world. That can get you a long way, just like we mentioned, where he can win you 2 or 3 games in a series. I think that they're going to have a hard time really going beyond like the second round, but I don't think I can really put it past them. And then they have a bunch of streaky shooters and guys like Jamal Murray, who's like a playoff merchant in a way, jokingly. And then you have a guy like Michael Porter Jr. who can get hot at any moment. And so I'm a believer in the Nuggets to at least be like competitive, and it wouldn't shock me if they made a surprise conference finals run.
So I put the Milwaukee Bucks here for no other reason other than they have Giannis and Dame. And like, I mean, come on. They have Giannis and Dame. They could do it. Is it likely? No. But we always can close our eyes and imagine what happens if those 2 guys go on the same page. And what happens is they go to the East Finals at least.
Yeah, they've been more on the same page this year whenever it seemed like it was sort of just destined for destruction with Giannis asking for a trade or something like that earlier this season. But I'm with you. It's those 2 guys, and the rest of their supporting cast is beyond uninspiring. I mean, Brook Lopez was a really good player. He's sort of just down the hill right now. Bobby Portis is not a guy I really, really trust in a playoff setting. And then Chris Middleton, the injuries have just stacked up too much. But those are 2 guys who can definitely win you a series or 2 and make a real run at it.
I'm going to go New York Knicks. I think if you tell me that your top 5 guys are healthy and they're playing 42 plus minutes a night and they're giving you a B plus production level, and on some nights it's an A plus, some nights it's a B plus, some nights it's an A minus. Like, as long as you get those three things, then you can go beat anybody if you're New York. But the problem is you're not going to get that a ton. It's like you've got to stay healthy, you've got to stay away from fatigue, and you've got to perform. Like, that's a lot of different things you have to check off that I don't trust you to do, which is what bumps them down to this tier for me. But I still think that they have the top end talent to be able to go on a run to the East Finals.
Sort of like you mentioned with the 76ers, they are the ultimate like on paper team of just looking at around the league. And I'm with you. I think that they could string together enough stops. I mean, Towns is one thing, but they're not going to face a lot of dominant bigs like the Celtics. That's not something they do. The Cavs have some size, but they're not posting up guys over and over and over. Giannis is really the only issue that I see for them, just down low. So I think that offensively they can hit a gear as high as just about anybody in the league when they're really, really rolling. So they could definitely make a run at it, but I think ultimately the fatigue and sort of the minutes piling up and sort of that stuff will ultimately bite them, like you mentioned.
Coming up, let's close this tier and preview the week ahead. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at Game Time. Go check them out today because Game Time is awesome. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories as a kid, of course, is attending minor league baseball games in Oklahoma City. And so you can have that same energy and excitement and make unforgettable memories with Game Time. Game Time has it even easier for you to get tickets to your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, you could be looking for tickets and say, well, I think I'm paying this price. Then you get to check out and you're not. I love the fact that that's not the case at Game Time, because Game Time has an ability to toggle an all-in feature where you can see every single cent you're going to pay right up front. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Go download the Game Time app today, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create your account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Go download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. Also want to tell you right now about our good friends over at Hungry Root. Check out Hungry Root today, because when it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, we've always had the ongoing problem of being too busy between work and life and trying to eat better. It makes you feel stressed out. Go to the grocery store and buy the things that you think you need, but you really don't need them. And it's kind of just as a lost art of where to start and how to achieve your goals. But everything changes whenever you discover Hungry Root. Honestly, it's been a game changer because it's the easiest way to eat better without all the stress. With Hungry Root, it's like getting a personal shopper and nutritionist all at once. They take care of the grocery shopping. They recommend the meals and the groceries based upon the taste and goals that you have. And the goals can even be from anti-inflammatory to high protein to gluten-free options. The best part is every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. So it's quick. It's healthy meals, and that they really taste great, all delivered straight to your door. It's been a huge time saver, and of course, has made for a better year to start this year. So you're going to love going to Hungry Root as much as I do. It's a limited time where you get 40% off of your first box and a free item in every box for life by just going to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA at hungryroot.com. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, or use the promo code LockedOnNBA for 40% off your first box and a free item in your choice for life. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Promo code LockedOnNBA. Do not miss out. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Continuing on with Michael Martin, let's talk Thunder on our tiers. So we're on the can make a run tier, but it's really tough. You've got to have some things break your way. I think we've knocked out the easy ones. I'm going to go Memphis. I think that Memphis, like with Ja, Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, and then some complementary pieces and a good head coach, like they could go for a miracle run, even if it's not likely.
I have them as like a tweener, like right below that and right between could win a game or two of just a team that, like, I think they're a trade away. The Jimmy Butler stuff is like evaporated, but they would have been my number one team to trade for Jimmy Butler. But I'm with you, all the same reasons that you mentioned. I think that they could make a run. I just think that they're one move away. But, as the deadline approaches, they're a team with a lot of depth. Maybe they make a consolidation trade.
Yeah, so then I had two tweeners as well. My tweeners were Orlando and Minnesota. I just kind of lumped them in this tier because we saw Anthony Edwards make a conference finals last year. Maybe they can get things right. I don't think that they can, but I also don't think that it's right to put them into the tier where it's like we're questioning if they can win a single game. So I'm going to put them in this tier. And then the Magic, I love Paolo. I love Franz. I love how scrappy and gritty this team is and how they've won games without Paolo, without Franz. Like, they've done that kind of thing. I love it. But I do question if they can truly go on a run. But this is a tier where if everything breaks your way and if you can get enough scoring from those top two guys, you can beat a lot of teams. And so I'll put this tweener team in this category.
Yeah, I think the Magic are a year away from like really, really making some noise and like being a contender for the conference finals, or anything like that. I think they're a player away as well. The Wolves, you mentioned sort of like, crazy to say that they could only win 1 or 2 games. I'm crazy enough to say that because Julius Randle is one of the worst playoff performers in NBA history, just statistically, and shooters. And then you have a guy like Gobert who's had his issues where I think he's a really good player, but they have not set him up to be successful. And then Anthony Edwards, like, buddy, you think you're getting double teamed a lot now. You go to the playoffs, that's all it's going to be. And so that's ultimately why I just don't really trust that team. And then some of the things we saw them with against the Thunder were I predicted they were just going to turn the ball over like crazy. I still don't trust their ball handling. I don't think they have a trade to make, and I ultimately just see this Wolves team sort of just fizzling out this season.
Well, I could for sure see that happening because I do not like Julius Randle either. I'm interested to follow along these ones where we split. That'll be a lot of fun the rest of the year. But the true contenders where you don't even have to think twice about like the fact that they're winning a championship. Like if I told you, hey, Michael, at the end of the year, this team won a championship, you go, okay, pretty much makes sense. Obviously, Boston's in there. There's not much to say about that. Boston is the reigning champs, and they have a ton of talent. I'm going to go with Cleveland in here. Have you confirmed that as well? Cleveland's in here because of what they can do, what they've proven to be.
Yeah, Cleveland has beaten me to the point where it's like, we're in here, and you're going to acknowledge it. I like Garland, I like Mitchell, I like Mobley, I like Allen just on paper, but seeing them sort of just string it all together and then seeing it in front of my eyes, just watching them against the Thunder, and we'll get to see them again, in a week or so, because of a team that we've like really, really watched, so we know how good they are, really crystallize of just like how elite they are offensively. So I definitely think they're up there.
Yeah, I agree. They're in the title tier, and then the Thunder. The Thunder are capable of winning a championship. And we've talked about how good they can be a couple weeks ago, which you can go back and listen to for our in-depth thoughts on like what the ceiling of this specific Thunder team is. But we do have another week to preview real quick, Michael. The Thunder play Philadelphia today. They play Cleveland, Dallas, and then Brooklyn all this week. The Brooklyn one, easy win. So we got one of them booked in there. With the way that you are treating Philadelphia, that's probably an easy win, but we don't really know the injury report yet. So I'm curious to see who all actually plays in that game. So where do you go on what the record will be this week?
I'm in between 3-1 and 4-0. It's really just the Cavs game that I'm looking at here, because like the Mavs, like they've been solid, they've been scrappy, they beat this Thunder team without Luka before, but no Luka, no Kyrie. I just don't see that happening this time, especially with how the Thunder are sort of rolling. You mentioned Brooklyn, they're a team that's not really trying to win, so not a lot of fear there. Then Philadelphia, that just seems like another one of those games where the Thunder's like ball pressure and just turnovers are just going to generate more and more and just sort of tidal wave and avalanche on them. And whether Embiid plays or not, I think the pace is just going to be too much for them.
So I agree. I think that this is going to be a one-loss week in terms of like what the ceiling is. The ceiling is 4-0. The bottoming out is a one-loss week. So I agree with that. I think that Dallas is a scrappy team. They don't have enough to beat the Thunder. We agree there. I think that this could be an annoying game where like perhaps Jaden Hardy just goes insane, but it's still, I mean, the likelihood of that feels so low. Not for any reason of like Jaden Hardy. I'm actually a big Jaden Hardy guy. I just don't think that against this Thunder defense, you're going to see a lot of guys have crazy nights whenever you get to focus on them. Like
other than PJ Washington.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like PJ Washington goes off, right? But it's because you're gearing for Luka, you're gearing for Kyrie. I'm so fascinated to see what do the Mavs role players do whenever there's no detention distractors out there. You're getting to just play your basic shell defense the entire time, because even Klay Thompson out there, you're not sending 2-3 to Klay Thompson. So you're playing this team straight up. And how are you able to negotiate that game? I still think that they're going to win it no matter how ugly or pretty it looks. But I do think that they're going to lose to Cleveland. And that brings us to our final topic. Is there any adjustments that you see that the Thunder can make to get that win over Cleveland?
I mean, actual adjustments, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, the biggest one would be don't let guys like Max Strus just murder you off the bench like they did. And Ty Jerome, those guys just dominated the bench for them. But other than that, I mean, like, there could be tighter rotations like we saw in the second half where there were less lobs and less of Mobley just sort of dominating down the paint. But honestly, that just felt like one of those games where both teams played well and the Cavs ultimately won. But I don't think we're going to get another stinker just like the we saw from Donovan Mitchell. I think he has to play better. But ultimately, I think this is another coin flip game for the Thunder. So until we see Chet back, I can't tell you ultimately what the adjustments would be, but I think we're getting another good game.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I think that the only adjustments that you can hope for, because you can't just like magically grow, is going to be, one, the role players shoot better at home versus on the road. And so that works both ways. Like Ty Jerome and Max Strus were awesome. Mm-hmm. Can they do that on the road, in a new environment? And they can. They've both had good seasons. Ty Jerome especially has been really good this year. So credit to those guys. I'm not trying to detract from them. But it's an old adage for a reason. Like that's just a staple of the NBA. And on the flip side, maybe you get a huge Isaiah game. Maybe you get a huge Wiggins game, and that kind of offsets some of that. And then past that, like you mentioned, you've got to figure out how to handle their zone defense, because I think that they're going to go back to that a lot because they went to it 12 times in the fourth quarter. And you think about that, they went to a half-court zone defense 12 times in a single quarter, where you're not always not all your possessions are ending in the half-court set. So, that was a ton of zone defense, and it really discombobulated Oklahoma City. They've got to be able to handle that better in this game. And then you have the aspect of the rotations defensively. You cannot afford a single lapse in rotation. You cannot afford a single lapse in judgment in terms of like how you're going to handle this team and how you're going to handle these lob threats and everything. And the last adjustment is kind of an unknown right now. If you can get Alex Caruso on the court in this game, I think that the game does change a little bit. I'm not saying that like it changes enough to win the game, but it could, because whenever we talked to Sam Presti right after that trade, he said that like Alex Caruso is the best guard at scaling up and defending bigs. And we've seen it here whenever the Thunder didn't have a single center, he was having to battle big men. And so if you have that guy being the low man in rotation to cut off a big at the rim, you've improved your odds of getting a stop versus where you were at last week. So every little bit helps in a game in which will be so close, so fun, so competitive, and the margin for error is so slim. So the only real adjustment is make your shots, have better rotations defensively, hope that Caruso plays, and kind of go from there and handle the zone defense better from Cleveland. But other than that, just run it back and hope that you make more than you miss.
Just run it back. Yeah, I like the Caruso point. I didn't even really consider that, but of him coming back, it just seems like he's been sort of in the, as Mark would put it, the injury portal, the injury mechanism, whatever it is, forever, just lost in there. But he could definitely really, really help on some of those low things. I mean, Mobley really impressed me, just sort of his physicality of him backing some of these guys down. But I think that Caruso getting up under into his space could definitely make a difference.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Let them know where they can find you. Let them know where you can find what you're working on and everything that you've done so far.
Well, you can find me unfrozen over at Let's Talk Thunder. Unfortunately, we're having some technical issues today, which don't usually happen. But I recently put out a video about Lou Dort being a clutch defender, clutch player, big game Lou, after we saw what he did sort of to the Celtics the other day. And then this week, unfortunately, due to A.J. Mitchell's injury, it's not going to be as timely, but I'm still going to put something out about how good he's been in his rookie season and sort of what the Thunder are missing with him out.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Go check that out. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube, at Michael on Sports on Twitter. I'm at Rylan_Stiles on Twitter. Locked on Thunder everywhere. YouTube, podcasting apps, everywhere that you can get us. And until tomorrow, when we're going to recap the Sixers game, be good and be good to one another.